Let's go live with Jack Kelly. Welcome to the one-of-a-kind LinkedIn live show that will help you with your job search and advancing your career. We will bring in educated career experts who will share their insights and give you inside tips on how to be successful in your job search. Now let's get into today's show with your host, Jack Kelly.
It looks like we are live. Media is now streaming live. Here we go.
Fantastic.
Kevin,
technology's working today.
Yes, which a lot of times it doesn't. So I always got to appreciate when it does. So Kevin D. Turner, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to speak with you. And let's just jump in, and maybe you could tell a little bit about yourself, what you do, and then the goal is for the show to really help people out with some really good advice, whether you're looking for a job or enhancing your career. So Kevin, take the stage and tell us all about yourself.
Well, Jack, first of all, I wanted to say thank you for having me here. It's quite an honor. I follow a lot of things you do, and I love reading your posts and Kensington News and everything else. And so it's nice to see you and talk with you kind of in person, although we're not really in person, are we? Or we're kind of wide open here on live, but very excited to do that. I'm a little unique in the sense that my focus is both organizational and personal branding. And it's really about figuring out, what values either an organization or person has and how to bring those forward through social media. And so that's really what I focus on. And then on the personal side, because we're really talking about people finding careers, that's become one of our expertises. And we do everything from resumes to LinkedIn profiles into really getting them to understand things like social currency, how to build it, how to digitally network. And through that process, we give a lot away. We give a lot of information away, and we're excited to do that. And that's built a lot of great relationships. LinkedIn is one of those interesting places that I have seen what traditionally were competitors become kind of cooperative in the sense. And it's not just in the field I'm in or the field you're in, it's even for the job seekers. Those that they thought were competitors now can be their best ally if they're willing to do the same for that individual. So I think that paradigm has changed something dramatic, and I'm excited about it.
It does. It feels that way for you talking. Yeah. And just so I could kind of unpack it a little bit. So would you consider yourself more a brand person, helping people with their brand and marketing, or a career coach, or the two just intertwined, so you don't really define yourself one way or the other?
I think they do intertwine. I think to me, the coaching part of it, the writing part of it, the understanding of social media, those are all skill sets within somebody who is really helping somebody with personal branding. So you can't really do it without having those pieces. It's not a brochure you put up and then run, right? Because that doesn't do anything. So you have to be skilled in all the other facets of really what makes a personal brand effective and run. And so that's really what we focus on.
It makes sense. And I'm glad it's so interesting, because like the beginning of the conversation, you mentioned, hey, we feel we know each other from being online. And I think a lot of that has to do with what you're talking about, is that if you build a brand on social media, in our case, it's more of LinkedIn, in which you and I have got to know each other. And it's weird because you do feel like you know someone and you're friends with someone. I'll find myself talking to, my wife and kids. And I'll say, oh, my friend so-and-so. And I think about it. When I used that term in the past, it would be like people in person.
Yeah.
Like you do things with in person. But now it's people who you've met online and you've cultivated this relationship. And I think, and I'm curious of what you would say, that if you're really good in branding yourself and marketing yourself online, then you really do become someone's friend, and they get to know you, or they feel they know you, even if they've never met in person. Is that kind of one of the goals, maybe, to position yourself that way?
It absolutely is. I'm a big fan of certain books, and Bob Burg, one of the authors of The Go-Giver, right?
I never heard that. What's that? Wait, Bob
Burg, The Go-Giver.
Go-Giver. Okay.
And one of the bases in the books is we buy, right? We do business with people that we know, like, and trust. And so if you want to do business, and we all have to, right? None of us are multi-billionaires that don't have to work. And even if we were, we'd probably work anyway, right? But to really, really get that going, people have to know, like, and trust us. And so that is always part of that kind of that personal brand that you've got to get out there. And, you can't get that out there without giving, right? Without providing value to others, without helping others. You can't build the know, like, and trust. And to me, that's critical. And it's what people have a tendency to forget. We see so many people using tools, automated tools, Sales Navigator, basically pounding on people saying, know, like, and trust me, right? Here's my product, know, like, and trust me. It doesn't work ever. What do? We hit delete, right? Or now we hit report. And hopefully at some point, if enough people report them, they learn their lesson and they take a new approach. But I don't know if they're that evolved. But absolutely is the key.
Yeah. And before I go on, if you see me look away, I don't mean to be rude, but what happens, I have my phone here, so they kind of give me, in case it gets, first of all, to let me know we were live, and then to make sure the sound quality is good, the lighting is good, or if people have questions. So I just want to let you, if I look away, I'm not being a jerk.
No. I completely, you're got so much going on over there, kind of like the Wizard of Oz, right? Don't look behind the curtain. So I know you're doing everything, and I don't know how people do it on live.
I'm terrible at it. So this way I need help. I need like air control, to say, okay, all right, hey, you got to do this. Oh, hey, you have a question from somebody asking Kevin this. So that's what it is. So let's do this, because in my opinion, what I see happening now is that as we're rolling out the vaccines and it's going kind of slow, I'm concerned that the job market is going to be a little soft for a while. And I hate saying this, and people could get mad at me for saying this, but I don't take no pleasure in saying this, but I think one of the value people like Kevin and I bring to the table is just kind of being transparent about, hey, how we see things. Maybe we're right, maybe we're wrong, but kind of manage expectations. And so that it may take a while till the companies, till the government, cities, states say, all right, we've inoculated enough people, we feel comfortable to reopen. But in the meanwhile, it might be a little slow going. So in that time period, so people could still be successful, still get interviews, still get jobs, what would you suggest for them to brand themselves, to market themselves, to network on LinkedIn? So that rather than just saying, and we both know this, a lot of people just give up and say, you know what? I waited this long, I'll wait longer, and go on the sidelines. To bring them off the sidelines, to get them back in the game. What do you have some interesting suggestions for these folks?
A couple of things, and maybe we've got a couple subjects here. One of them is with all the pressure right now that's on everybody, we're getting tired, we're getting fatigued, we're getting worn out. We're trying to do everything all the time. And one of my favorite quotes is Karl Lagerfeld, and that is, you cannot be in the spotlight 24/7, go and hide and do something for yourself, recharge your batteries. And you have to do that. We have a tendency to forget that. We've got to disconnect from work, disconnect from our digital persona, right? And go do something, whether it's, take a walk at the park, read a book under a tree, take the dog out, walk with a significant other. We have to do something that separates our time, minimally, I think an hour a day, where we get that energy back, where it's amazing. You could be trying to solve a problem all day long, and because you're in the work atmosphere and you're trying to solve the problem, it never gets solved. And you go for a walk in the park for an hour and bingo.
Isn't that wild how that is?
Aha, that's it.
Isn't that crazy how that is? That happens to me all the time.
Yeah,
you do something.
That fatigue wall down.
It's so wild.
And you can be creative again. Yeah. And so if you can do that, if you can schedule that time, it's really critical to do. And,
we gotta track down some, I guess, neuroscientist, or I don't know what you call people who study the brain. Like, how does that happen? Where, you're just like you're saying, you go for a walk in the park and all of a sudden the thought pops into your head and you're like, oh, okay, that's the answer.
I think it goes back to you're trying too hard.
Yeah, you think so? And that's what it is?
And that just creates this kind of, you can't solve it.
Okay.
And as soon as you forget about it is when the real ideas come in.
All right. So we don't even need a brain doctor for this. We figured it out. We're smarter than that.
Maybe.
So we all right. So all right. I'll go with that. I think that makes sense. You're relaxing. You're not, because like you're not, it's like anything else. If you stress too much, like in an interview, sometimes you don't go well. When you drive yourself crazy by stressing out, you come across poorly. But if you go in and you're confident and you're comfortable with yourself, then it usually does go pretty well.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes if you have to get to that interview an hour early, don't go in, but go do the same thing. Walk outside, enjoy things a little bit, take the time to take that stress energy out, right? So that when you do go in, you're your best self and you're creative and you're ready to respond. Yeah. Again, we try to run right up to the wall, full energy, and then go do an interview. We're already half wiped out when we're going in. So take your time, get there early, relax, do something for yourself for, 10, 20 minutes before that interview begins. And you'll go in there in a much different shape, both mentally, physically, everything. And it makes a huge difference. And you can tell when people do that. Some of the best mentors I've had in my career used to go for walks. They'd be like, hey, come walk with me. It was never, let's go and have another meeting, right? Mm-hmm. Let's go in that little cubicle room and do this again. It was always come walk with me. And you would walk and you would talk about, whatever it was, fishing, dogs, a cool car you saw, whatever it was. It didn't matter. But then ultimately it would come back to these great ideas and things would really formulate. And it's that, again, getting out of what you've kind of forced yourself into every single day to get the job done. You got to separate that and you got to take that personal time, and schedule it. So that, I guess that's the first part of that question. The second part is, in this thought of creating your own personal brand, right? And how do you do it? How do you go about it? How much time do you spend on it, right? And many people have said, you know what, I am who I am. Everybody knows me and that's fine. And that's okay if those people that know you have a job for you right now, right? Because you got to pay bills. Right. If they don't, then you have to expand that circle, right? And that is the beauty of LinkedIn, is it's given you global reach to find the opportunity and to have the opportunities find you. So you can put a brochure up there, right? Your profile, and you can leave it, and maybe like winning the $1 billion lottery, maybe you'll be the one. But that's not how you pay the bills, right? You've really got to then say, okay, who's my audience? What do they like? Who are they? Who can hire me? Who needs me? Who values my skills, right? So you want to know who that is so you can kind of focus your direction. Then you've got to evaluate yourself. What do you do well? And I see too often, everybody's trying to be the jack of all trades, right? Mm-hmm. I can do everything and anything, because that's what companies kind of make us do in a way. But what we don't think about is that phrase, jack of all trades, that's only half of it, right? The next half, what is the next half? Master of none. That's the full phrase. And so people think that's my brand. I can do everything and anything that you need me to do. But when they present it that way, it's so wishy-washy that there is almost no value. Mm-hmm. Because I don't want somebody who's a master of nothing, right? I've got a teenage son for that. No, just kidding. I want somebody who can definitely solve my problem. And people always think, well, that's narrowing my focus, so much so. But you're not going to get them with this broad presentation of, I can do everything, because nobody hires for that individual. That individual is an entrepreneurial CEO, mm-hmm. right? They create their own opportunity. And if that is who you are, then that's maybe the direction you head, But if it's not, if you need to work for someone, you've got to figure out, what values do you have? What skills do you have that, first of all, make you happy as well, right? Because those are the ones you want to highlight, because that's going to ultimately make you happier in your career. And they should be skills that resonate with companies, right? Because if they don't resonate with the company, they're not going to pay for it, right? And you kind of have to figure out what that apex is and then build your brand around that. And part of building your brand is it's not just the LinkedIn profile, because again, that's a brochure, right? And you can make a great brochure. If you can get people to the brochure, you might be able to get them to read, and you might be able to get them more interested in you and reach out to you, but you got to get them there. And within LinkedIn, really the only way to get anybody to your profile is to generate interest, right? To provide value, to solve other people's problems, and to do it in a way where you're open and giving, right? If you can pull that off, people will come to the profile and they'll find the value. And, to me, that's probably the biggest bonus about being on LinkedIn is the ability to do that at no charge, right? You can have a free account and accomplish that. Where else can you do that? Everybody else would want to, charge you per click, right? Or per thousand or whatever it is for that same kind of exposure. But LinkedIn says, here it is, use it. It's only a small percentage of that, whatever it is, 750 million people that are on LinkedIn. It's a very small percentage that actually do this on a regular basis. Those are the people that you notice are transitioning. They're happy. They're finding opportunities. And you look at that and you go, oh, I wish I could be that successful. And you can. The formula isn't difficult, right? If we all have values that we can share, others will find that, will see it and understand it. And that creates that kind of the momentum that takes you forward. And you get better at it, right? The more often you do anything, the better you're going to get. So to me, it's, people have to kind of get over that fear of nobody will want to hear what I want to say, right? It won't have any value. And also don't think you're going to be an overnight success on LinkedIn because you've got something great to say, because it takes time. It builds. LinkedIn is in many ways technology driven to suppress a lot of great content, to get to even better content, which there is out there. And you have to kind of earn that right through the process. And it does take time. So it's not an overnight thing, but it's something that, can be done, and fairly quickly as well. There's people who are brilliant at this, and I've seen go from 0 to, 50,000 followers in, a 3-4 month period. So it can be done, but for most of us, it's going to take time to build. But if we're focused, it's going to be able to move us forward to a place that we want to go.
Yeah. So for a person, I agree with you, because as a recruiter, Kevin, when I'm looking for somebody, the company that's using our services wants us to find that exact fit. So to your point, I'm not looking for this generalist who could do everything. I'm looking for, maybe there's like 10 items that they gave and here's what you need. And I have to really hone in on that. And then when I'm looking at profiles, I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to figure out, like, what does this person do? To me, it's always great if I'm looking at that profile, I'm like, this person's like, check, check, check. I can't wait to, contact him or her, because wow, this person's right on target. Fantastic. So for me, and by extension, the company, that's what they want. They want someone who you could look and go, oh yeah, we're looking for, and then they'll fill in all the blanks, and this person fits it, and that's perfect. So with that in mind, I guess, when you're doing your brand, is it kind of, I don't want to say working backwards, but saying, okay, if I'm looking for a job or I'm looking to advance my career, here's what I got to do, here's what I got to say, and then maybe put together, like, how I get the whole brand concept, but like for someone who's starting and not sure what to do, is there like a game plan?
First of all, it's based on, where do you want to go?
Okay.
What does that look like? So if you know what that looks like, right? And you know what skills you have that opportunity needs, then it's really about writing about those, presenting those. One of the easiest ways to start in the process is not think about writing articles and posts, think about commenting, right? Commenting intelligently and adding value to the process. Mm-hmm. And, that's a great place to begin. And I usually tell people to find, let's say, 20 influencers in their industry, right? Or in their market, that they see as somebody that they respect, that they're sharing good content that you can add to and contribute, right? Follow them. If you're not connected with them, follow them first, add to their content, right? As they're posting. And ultimately a relationship should develop if you're doing it correctly. And that's when you can actually connect with that individual. And then you're going to find, you're going to continue to support them. And then you want to find a new group, right? And keep building that. And that's part of, how you're going to fine tune what content that you have to offer is resonating with the market. Two things, you're kind of basically getting exposure to a tribe that individual's already built, right? That is in your focus. And the other one is you're now seeing when you write something, who responds to it? How do they respond to it? And then, copy that, put that into a nice folder where this is something I could then build potentially a post from, or a poll from, or an article, to kind of get that moving forward. And, people forget to do that. They write brilliant things and then they move on. And they, 2 weeks later, I hear them talk about, I know I wrote something about that. What was it? Because everybody liked it. Well, again, get in the habit of copying those, putting them into a nice folder, right? Into a document so that you can go back and then develop your content from there, because it's kind of tested in somebody else's waters, right? So it allows you to kind of really perfect that to move it forward.
It's interesting. So the first thing it would be, let's say, I was one of your clients and I'm looking for a new job and maybe let's say on Wall Street in a conservative bank. So you probably would say, all right, this is the kind of job. So you want to put yourself out there as an expert in that particular area. So I don't know, let's say I'm a money manager. So you want to put yourself there. And I imagine if you're a money manager, you want to be kind of conservative. You want to come across as smart, knowledgeable, knowing about the economy and so on. So probably to your point, building the brand would be, all right, follow people who are senior level executives at all these different investment banks and hedge funds, what have you, get involved with their conversations, contribute, like you said, dip your toe in the water first. And you could like what they do, gives comments. But then when you're adding, you want to see your brand is that, hey, you want to be looked at as a serious, person, because people are going to trust you managing money. So everything you say and write and do, it has to convey that. Does that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I also would add to that is make sure they know you have a personality, right? That you are a human as well, because we have a tendency sometimes on LinkedIn to be too rigid.
Yeah.
So you can open up a little bit, but again, keep it in a professional sense. If you wouldn't do it in front of your grandmother, don't do it on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of a good basic rule. So, but allow them to know that you are a person. You've got a little humor, but in the same time, it's very professional. And if you ever do humor, do it about yourself, not others, right? Because you can, do that, get away with it. Nobody gets upset and people laugh with you. And, just a thing, I think you should let a little of that personality out.
Why do you think so many people don't do this? Because I've noticed, I'm sure you have too, there's so many people who are either very actively looking for a job or kind of looking for a job or just want to get noticed and advance with their career, but they don't do much. Or if they do something, it's just so lackluster. It's like, why even bother?
Well, I think people have been trained that you find a job by applying online only, right? Or you find a job by just networking with your close friends. They really don't know this extra piece. And because they don't know it, they don't have any of their own proof, right?
Yeah.
But they really should be watching to see those that are doing it right and they're having great success. And, that's kind of it's always easy to do what you know, right? There's no fear in it. I've done it before and it worked before. Times are very different. Now when you apply to a position, on average, an online position, when you apply, it's going to have about 265 qualified candidates within a couple of days of launch. And that, if you think about that, the return on application is less than 1%, that you'll get chosen to come in as a group of 3 to 5 people to interview. So you haven't even got the job yet, and it's less than 1%. Now, there are techniques that you can involve with keywording and weighting and kind of the approach of making things applicant tracking system compliant, they change that from, maybe less than 1% to 15 to 25%. You can spend less time applying, more time doing your research, but it's still a small component of how to get that next job. It's kind of, to me, it's a start point, right? I prefer if I see an ad for a great position or a great company, or I see a company is expanding, right? You read it in the news, whatever that is. I would want to look at that company and say, who do I know there? If I don't know anybody there, who am I most like there that I can begin building a relationship with, digitally networking, right? And I'm a true believer that networking always beats not working. It is uncomfortable, yes, but you know what is more uncomfortable? Not working.
Not working, right?
So networking always beats not working.
Yeah.
People need to just drill that into their head. The opportunity you have now, because you can't go out into a room in most places in the world, unless you're in New Zealand, right? You can't go into a room and shake 30 hands anymore. But you can go on LinkedIn and you can shake thousands of hands.
Which is arguably easier to do it that way than to be.
It is, because there's kind of a shield in some ways, in the digital sense.
It's so much easier, I think, than having to have that awkward going to someone. You have a name tag on. You go, how you doing? I'm Jack Kelly. Nice to meet you. And it's so forced, but online, it's kind of easier, I think.
Well, absolutely. But again, not a lot of people get it yet.
Do you think do you think it's imposter syndrome? Do you think they're shy? Do you think if they're out of work, they're a little embarrassed? A combination of all of these things? Or like you said, it's just they're so used to, okay, I send a resume, that's how it works. And they have not come to the realization, because I agree with you. I'm always to the point where I'm thinking at this stage of how the market is going, sending out applications and resumes is probably the last thing. I think the first thing you have to do is, like you pointed out, I think you're so darn right about it, is that you want to find what companies you want to work for. How can you find the people at those companies, get on their radar screen and have them champion your cause? Because you have I think the odds are way better, like you said, than sending a resume and they're like hundreds of other resumes. You don't stand out.
Yeah. Well, your business has changed. 10 years ago, if you're recruiting, there was less content to make decisions on, right? There was less of the sharing where you could say, this person actually has the knowledge. It's proven, it's out there, right? Mm-hmm. You were going, profile to profile. They were static resumes on LinkedIn, and that's how you were comparing your stuff. Now you've got all this additional content that you can say, this person is not just saying they know, they actually know. You can make a value judgment on that, right? That changes everything. Now, and I always think of the old joke, I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to run faster than you, right? And you're going to get eaten. That's what's going on right now. There are people who get this and they're running fast, and the bear is eating everybody else. Don't be food for the bear, right? Yeah. Look at that and say, I've got to run faster. I've got to embrace this, start using it so that I build that content, that reputation that's out there in the space. So when somebody like Jack goes to look for someone like me, I'm going to be at the top of the list. And that, when people figure that value out, it makes a lot more sense, and again, you have to start slowly. It's not an overnight success, but you can start slowly and build.
It's so funny because when you're talking about beginning of LinkedIn, what have you, I would get faxes. So this is kind of dating me here. I would come in on Monday morning and I'd run up to the fax machine and the resumes would be there. And you were hoping that the resumes didn't fall all over the floor, and then you'd have to kind of pick and match it up. So it really has evolved so much. And it's right. If you have your brand and you could kind of say, here's who I am, and then you're you're doing the things you mentioned by networking, getting in front of people. As a recruiter, as an internal, let's say HR kind of talent acquisition recruiter, they're going to remember you. They're going to see you because you're kind of making an imprint. It's almost the way I look at it sometimes. It's if you're doing things, it's like having your own billboard up on the highway. except the highway is, let's say, LinkedIn, or it could be Twitter or wherever. And that maybe you notice it, but you don't absorb it, but then you see it again and again and again and again. And after a while, it's like, oh, Kevin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin,
You
you know
become
what I mean?
the default answer.
It's right. That's how it's so wild how that works. Cause it's okay. Cause I keep seeing, let's say I keep seeing you and, about, let's say I would recruit for something, a lot of compliance people. And let's say I keep seeing you in compliance related searches, compliance related meetups, and so on and so on. Then there's a job. I'm like, oh, I'm call Kevin. Cause then I feel I know you. And then it's much easier to say, hey, Kevin, I have this job. What do you think? Let's talk. And if you're good for it, great. If you're not, then you might be inclined to say, oh, Jack, you know what? This is not right for me. I'm not looking. Let me introduce you to someone else. But having, seen you again and again and again and making those impressions, and to your point, they would have to be brand enhancing impressions, because it could also backfire. If there's somebody who you see on social media, there's always that person who could be brilliant and fantastic, but either they're complaining, they're just arguing. Then it's like, do I want to contact this person? Because it's a wild card, and I'm going to be judged by my clients by that person. So I'm a little nervous about how they present themselves. So you have to have that whole package together.
Well, and there's even technology now that is scraping social media and rating people on kind of a cultural fit. If you're the person that always argues, right, the point to get across and you have to win, that becomes part of that kind of digital persona for you. I always tell people, if you've done that in the past, go clean it up. Hopefully you can add more and it'll go away. You usually can't get rid of it, but you can bury it, right? And change the attitude. But what you've done manually fairly soon is going to be widespread digitally, in the sense of, seeing those things and, figuring out, what does that mean when this person always has the opposite opinion of everybody else, and sometimes even contradicts themselves from a prior comment, right? And you see them out there. They just want to argue and be right, as opposed to create and add value.
It's so interesting.
That comes into play. It becomes part of their brand.
It's so interesting. So I wrote something about how Biden was doing these executive orders, and one was Buy American. And then a couple of people give this diatribe. Well, and putting politics aside, this is just kind of an observation, because I'm not a Democrat or Republican. I've given up with the parties. I can't take it anymore. I just hope, I hope someone is like a third party or even a fourth party. But anyway, so he just kind of is bashing, and the typical that you see more on Facebook, bashing. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, why are you doing this? Like, first of all, I'm not going to argue with you, because to your point, that's not going to be my brand to be slinging mud back, because I'm just going to look bad. So I'm going to take the higher ground and be like, whatever. But if I were to see him and there's a job opening up, there's like zero way I would contact that person, because it doesn't have self-control. If you gave a reasoned response, that's one thing. But if it's just, the usual rant and rave, it's like, what? Like, how is that going to help you? Why is that going to make you look good? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I could see how those things backfire with someone not even realizing, because they're thinking they're right about it, but they don't realize that they just come across very tone deaf.
I think they need a release. They're getting that same, we were talking about that frustration.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And
You're
so
right.
they think that social media, especially LinkedIn, is the platform for that release. And they think you can do it, feel great about yourself, whatever it is, and you go on, but they're not realizing that there is kind of a tarnish to the reputation, and people don't want people that, it's obvious that they're there just to argue and to win, not to listen, to learn. And you can have, varying points. I had posted something on a LinkedIn post the other day, and somebody saw what I had posted and thought something different, and they voiced their opinion. And another person said, this is absolutely the right way to do it. And I watched those two go back and forth, but they did it in a very professional manner. They were very respectful to each other. I can see what you're saying there. Have you ever thought about it this way? And it was brilliant. I've actually captured the screenshots. I'm going to make a post out of it and praise both of these individuals for the professional debate that they had. And that's what it was. It was a debate. Debates are okay.
Yeah.
Arguing is not.
Right? How funny is that? It's so rare that it catches your attention when people are actually being nice to each other and disagreeing politely. That you're like, oh my God.
I followed it all the way through, and I actually connected with both of them and said, I don't agree with either one of you, but
it's refreshing to see.
I liked how you presented all the way through this, and there was at least 3 volleys, and they were long. They weren't, blowing each other off, in that sense. It was just a really nice thing to see. And you don't see enough of that in the world. And to me, that shows a value that individual can have a conversation with somebody who has a different opinion, and they can get to a better, more neutral ground. Maybe they don't agree fully at the end, but they get to a better place, and they can actually, and they've connected those two because of that, because that was only one piece of who they are, a small percentage they disagreed with it, but they were so respectful of each other, they even connected. And I thought that was great. That's the way things should be. And social media to me is the whole concept of social currency, right? You're building this reputation. I always say it's based in the gold standards, right? Of reciprocity, sharing, and caring. If you can do those things, right, in the way you approach things, that social currency will build. And the beauty of any kind of currency is one day you get to do what? You get to spend it, right? For something of value. And that's the real concept here, is as you're doing this, the real value is that incredible job, right? Or that incredible opportunity, whatever it is, or starting your own business because you've got a group that says, hey, why don't you help me with this, right? And that's the process of building that social currency so that you can cash it in. You don't have to cash all of it in, but you want to be able to do that. And you can't get there without thinking about, how you treat others in the process.
Right. Now, Kevin, would you suggest that people use all the different social medias, or depends on your career? I mean, what do you think? And then also, if you don't mind, I want to ask you about Clubhouse too, because I know you're getting involved. So would you say just stick with like one social medium or a few? Because it's hard to juggle all those. What's your take?
It is. And you can't do them all well, right? It's kind of that going back to jack of all trades.
Yeah.
If you're going to be the social media specialist of all platforms, right? You're going to be the master probably of none.
Yeah.
So I would say find the platform that fits where you want to go, that gives the most opportunity. For most people in business, right, that seems to be LinkedIn right now. And so I think it's a great focus. There are other people that are more into art and photography, and there are social sites for that. And that makes maybe more sense for them to be there. So I think it depends on really what your end goal is and where that audience is interacting. Right. And I don't suggest people try to be on all social media and continue to push that out there. And each platform has a preference to what kind of content, what kind of ways they want to be presented to. They're all very different. So you could be basically kind of re-scrambling the eggs for every single one of them. I don't know if it would benefit anybody to be able to even attempt to do it. So I think find the places you're comfortable, that your audience is there, that they're interacting with you, and that can create the opportunity. Right now, I don't think you can be out there if you are unemployed or underemployed or even looking to expand to a different type of opportunity. I don't think you can do that right now without LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's to me, it's like the go-to white collar kind of professional network. Although I do see a bit of a change. It seems where it's getting a little bit more Facebooky in a way, and then also different types of folks who, I guess because of the pandemic, have lost their job and migrate, which is kind of neat because then it kind of changes it a little bit, and sometimes change is really nice. You have different people, different walks of life, and it's good. Another entrant is Clubhouse, and for the people watching this and who will watch it after we record it and re-up it and edit and clean it up and all that kind of stuff. Now you've been on there and you go on there regularly or?
If I were to compare it in time frame,
right,
I'd probably spend maybe 10-15% of my day with it.
Really? That's a lot.
Yeah, but most of the rest is LinkedIn.
Well, you know what? Can you,
Right.
because I would imagine a lot of people aren't familiar with Clubhouse, and you know it better than I do. I just have a very cursory understanding. How would you describe this new social media platform to folks?
Well, and to me, it's interesting because it's almost like 90s technology. Like you've got
Mhm.
mail, you've got chat room, right?
Yeah.
But it came at a perfect time. People are so missing contact, right?
Mhm.
Missing the human voice.
And so it's talk. So people listening, it's like you're just having conversations, right? You go in a room.
Absolutely. It's like you've
Just
entered a
talking.
room and there's a certain control to it, but you can go in there and you can have conversations. You can raise your hand. You can ask questions. And for many people, they've followed people on LinkedIn, but all they've ever really seen is maybe a video, which is a one way, right? Or they've watched a live, which still they're looking from the outside in, or they've read articles. Here is an opportunity to be able to basically walk into a room. That's why they call it Clubhouse, right? It has a bunch of rooms and a hallway. You could walk into that room and you can hear people that you have followed for years. You can hear them talking and you can raise your hand, be invited up and ask questions.
Mhm.
And, that in itself, I think it's just powering this whole process because
Right.
people really want to get back to this kind of, talking and getting together. And, part of Clubhouse, it can be very social. There's some late night clubs that, people on the other side are having their adult beverages and
Yeah.
they're telling jokes and, and then there's other sides that are really professional. There's a whole community of people on Clubhouse that are talking about LinkedIn, how to use LinkedIn, how to make it work for you,
Mhm.
kind of the tips and tricks
Right.
of making that work. And, you can study that all day long on LinkedIn, but it's not personalized to you. The message on LinkedIn, it's for everybody, right? So you can actually go in that room and you can hold your hand up and you can ask somebody who is known as a LinkedIn expert or renowned or whatever you want to call it. And they'll answer the question for you. They'll pull up your profile, they'll talk to you, they'll give you tips and hints. And, if you were to pay them for their services, right, that could be thousands of dollars, but you're getting it for free through this interaction of Clubhouse. And, I think it's very powerful. One of the beauties of it is there's no recording technically allowed in Clubhouse.
So you don't have to
it
worry.
is,
You can feel
kind of a
comfortable.
one and done, right?
Yeah.
You have this conversation just like you would in a regular room. You don't have this fear of going into a networking room and somebody's recording you when
Yeah.
you're making statements, right? So you talk more freely, more openly, more friendly. There's less pretense in the process, and it's just more comfortable. And because of that, and I hope that continues on, I think people are sharing things more openly, and I like that. And then then you leave, and the conversation is done, right? The terrible thing about it, though, is there's always a conversation going on. And there's some great, valuable conversations and some incredible people on that some people are getting so sucked into it, they're spending all of their day.
Yeah.
And I mean, I watch notifications come across my screen on my iPhone, right? And I see the same people. They're there from 6 in the morning till 3 a.m. every day. And I don't know how they do it because I don't know how they do a job.
Do you think they just have it in the background while they're doing other things? Because I love listening to
You
music
can tell
while I'm working.
sometimes that's the fact.
Yeah.
Because somebody will ask them a question and they're not ready. So I think some people just
Yeah.
kind of hang on it. Some people are trying to get the balance, right? But it's really that kind of fear of missing out that they're drawn to it. So I always tell people, be careful. This is just like networking in real life. Often job seekers will go to job seeker networking groups, right? You could do that from 6 in the morning till 3 a.m., right? And all you would end up with is a bunch of networking about job seekers.
All right, let me.
Right. So,
All right, so
sometimes
let
you
me
got to
ask you
do the
this.
real work too.
Kevin, let me ask your opinion on this. And I don't mean to bring this up like to disparage or say, make this sound negative at all. It just is a really curious question. There's been such a proliferation of these kind of online meetups, and you would have these people who go to all of them, which is good. But then I wonder, I don't know, after a while, is that overkill? Just like you said, if you're just doing too much and you need to get out and take a walk.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Now, for some people, I think that's one of the things that Clubhouse is allowed.
Well, not even club, like off club, like just anywhere.
Break.
Yeah.
Now, maybe it's not a break from digital, and some people are so wired, they grew up with, games in their hand. To break digital would be frustrating for them, right? So this is a way that they can break up work and have a conversation with a group of people that they really enjoy, and that might be that thing that relieves the fatigue, right? So again, you've got to figure out what it is for you, and I can tell that there are people that are enjoying it for that factor alone, is that it breaks up their day.
Well, I'm not sure. I meant more like not the Clubhouse one, but just the various different types of, meetups that you'll see pop up, advertised on LinkedIn and other places, where, they be job related, career related, job search related, and you could tell they go from one to one, the other, and then I'm not sure after a while, is there value to that after a while, or they just feel they have to do it? So, a lot of times we just do things because we just get used to doing it.
Yeah. Well, I think if you're not getting value from it, whether that value is the fatigue relief, right? Or something creative, a thought that's going to help you move forward. If you're not getting that and you're just showing up, just like on any platform, people call them lurkers, right? They just kind of hang out.
Right.
And they don't get anything from it. They don't give anything to it. They're wasting their time. Nothing will come from that. Nobody looks for the person in the back of the room, right? That didn't do anything, that nobody contributed anything, nobody knew they were there, right? That's kind of what that is. So, if you're not getting value and you're not contributing and you're not, I guess, taking something away from it, then it's probably one of those signs that maybe you should let it go, right? Because again, you've got things you've got to get done. You've got to focus that time towards those. For some people, they look at it as I'm networking to get a new job. Well, if they're not really networking, they're not really.
See, that's I guess my underlying point. Yeah, because like I'll pop on these because I always like learning and listening and hearing what ideas people have. But then sometimes, and again, I swear to you, this might come across crass, but I don't mean it that way at all. But we've all seen this when you look at the people on the call. Sometimes they don't want to be there. They look miserable. They look sad. They look beaten down. They look, bedraggled. I don't even know if that's a word. And
I like it though.
And then you start thinking like, maybe just tap out. Cause like, you can see you're not in it. And then this goes back to the brand, because let's say if I was on a recruiter there kind of like saying, anybody here that fits what I'm recruiting for, I'd be like, that person doesn't really seem, kind of like an A candidate or an A person. And I almost want to tell these people, hey, you know what, man, just like maybe just walk away for a little bit, clear, like like the advice you're giving, clear your head, do something else, because it seems like you're not in it, and it doesn't seem like you're really networking with others. So can't you spend? Maybe you can spend your time
absorbing time at that point.
Yeah,
and hopefully they realize that, and do
you think
find another purpose?
See, do you think? And again, I'm thinking this out loud because as you mentioned, made me think of all this. That maybe because it's same thing with applications and resumes. You're just so used to this is what you do, so you do it. This is a modern version of it because you had the old-fashioned networking we talked about, but now you have it online, so it's convenient. You log in, you listen. Maybe you go to another one, and then you tell your spouse, "Oh yeah, I was really busy today. I was on these 3 calls.
I met 100 people.
Yeah, nothing,
and none of them know who I am.
Right? None. So, from a time management, what would you suggest? What do you think is the best return on the time of branding yourself and networking yourself?
If you're in pure job search mode, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're able to identify that audience,
right,
and you're gaining momentum. I can see somebody spending anywhere from 30 to 40, maybe even 50% of their day doing that if it is yielding results.
I'm sorry, doing what? Doing what part?
Out there participating.
Okay,
in the
right. Getting
process,
involved.
right?
Okay.
Sharing and commenting and, you know, that, but that's not enough. You've got to then convert, right, that digital connection into the real world. And a lot of people are forgetting to do that. You know, they might connect on LinkedIn, they might continue to comment, but they really need to set that, maybe that Zoom call up, or, hey, let's meet at Clubhouse, right? And talk some more, set up a room, but try to break the kind of the digital connection in the sense of adding in the personal connection, right? You may not be able to sit down and have a cup of coffee, but there's other ways to do this. And, you know, the incredible thing that has happened in the last year is there's been a digital transformation that no CMO, CTO, CEO has ever been able to pull off, right? People now who could never use a system like Zoom are experts at it, right? Your grandmother can do it, you know, and does it every day. And so things have changed, you know, but people need to try to take that digital connection that they have and really get it as close to reality as possible, right?
See, you know, it's so interesting because I'm thinking this through. You raise such a great point because, all right, you do all the right things. You wear, let's say, the job you want, and let's take it, even if you're not looking, but you want to enhance, you know, your visibility within your industry to do whatever. So you're doing all the things you mentioned before. You're connecting with these people who are kind of thought leaders or big shots in the space, like their stuff, going back and forth. But then you want to convert it. You want to kind of get that relationship going. And I'm thinking about that got to be a little hard to do because then you're like, am I being too forward? Am I being too pushy? So I could see why people have like what I've done, and in a way, maybe any, you know, is like doing what you and I are doing. You know what I mean? If I bump into or see somebody who looks like they have a lot of value to add and what have you, to say, hey, let's jump on a LinkedIn and we could talk. But if you don't have that, like, how can you, what can you do that's not weird or awkward to get?
And part of that is, as opposed to, you know, let's have a Zoom call, right?
I guess that's what,
that's real direct on. You can make, hey, do you ever do Zoom calls, right?
Yeah.
It's sometimes the wording in your approach, right, that can make the difference. And the other person say, I never do Zoom, but I do Clubhouse, or you know, I don't do Zoom, but I wouldn't mind getting on a phone call with you, right? So by not saying let's do this, in the essence asking, do you ever, you know, have conversations in this way? You're setting it up so they don't have to say no. They can give you alternatives, right? And I think that's a big piece of it. People have a tendency to be too direct, because in social media, you're typing, texting, and sometimes it is more direct. When you're taking it into that kind of more personal world, you can become a little softer, a little less direct, right? A little less confrontational, where they have to say yes or no. And, you know, that's different. In social media, if you ask somebody a question that's yes or no, I can walk away for 3 hours, make up my mind, and come back, and maybe not even come back, right? But if you ask it to me in kind of a personal process, I then have to make a decision. And if I don't want to offend you, or if it doesn't fit what I'm doing, or I don't want to tell you what I'm doing, why I can't do that, that all kind of puts up a barrier, right? So sometimes it's how you approach that request that makes the difference, I think.
So I think it goes back to, like, you know, when you're younger and you're in middle school and there's this girl that you like and you want to ask her to go to the movies, and your parents are going to have to drive you. So it's really weird and awkward, but you know, you have to, I guess you have to ask, you just got to do it. You know, it's almost like one of those things, you got to push yourself to do it.
Where some of them will say no, and a few will say yes.
Right. And just take, right. I guess that what it really boils down to is that for the people who are watching and listening, if it's uncomfortable, you know what? It is. It is, I think, unless you're like this really gregarious extrovert, I think it is a little uncomfortable to do. But it's like one of the things, like, you have no choice. I guess you got to do it, because if you don't do it, you're not going to.
The alternative is more uncomfortable.
Yeah, because you never really build more of these relationships. You didn't have this superficial-ish relationship because you really didn't get to know that person, and it's not going to help you as well. But if you turn that corner, And then maybe you do have that Zoom call and you have a really nice conversation, you get to know each other, and now it's great. And you have a mutually benefiting relationship. But if you never asked, it's not going to happen. So I guess it's really boils down to, and it's tough for people and some others, but it's just one of those things, you got to do it.
I always find it fascinating that people who don't have a sales background, right? In Sales 101, you're always taught every no is one step closer to a yes, right? So if you get 100 no's, don't take that personally, because you're going to get one yes.
Yes.
Right? People who don't do sales don't really understand that, because they've been a different offering, right? And they might have gotten 100% acceptance. It's a different process. So
Kevin, I got to tell you, it's so right. I got to tell you, I never knew that really until I started recruiting. And then after a while, because you get discouraged, maybe you're trying to get a job order from a company, you don't get it. You're trying to get a candidate, they blow you off, and so on. And then I don't know, I don't even think I found out for myself. I think like maybe one of the senior folks there were said, hey, this is how it works. Yeah, you're going to get rejected way more than you're going to get a positive result. And that's okay. And then the joke becomes exactly what you say. The more no's, the closer you get to yes. Yep. And then once you have that knowledge, Kevin, it was so uplifting, because then any rejection was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is what's supposed to happen.
One off the list.
Yeah,
a couple more.
It's almost like, this is what. In fact, it would go to the same degree. If, like, let's say I would call you to recruit, and right away, like, oh yeah, Jack, I'm interested. I'm like, that was too easy. Yeah. You know what I mean? Maybe this stuff, and a lot of times it would be like then we would call back, and you're like, yeah, I thought about it, Jack, I'm not interested. So it does do that, and I think for people who are listening, you may think Kevin and I are nuts by bringing it up. You're like, what are you guys talking about? But trust us, if you look at it in those terms, that it's a numbers game, that the more people you try to forge a relationship and forge a connection, the odds are you're going to get a certain percentage who can say yes. You can get a lot of people going to say no, probably more people say no. If you have 10 people, what I've always found, this is what I found, like with recruiting, which is kind of sales-ish, maybe 2 people will be really psyched. Oh, great, Jack. Yeah, I'd love to talk to you. Let's talk about this job. The job you're talking about is fantastic. Or maybe this job isn't great, but you know what? I know you get these cool roles. Let's talk. Then you have 2 who are just going to be like, nah, leave me alone. Put me on your do not call list. Don't send me, 2, just whatever. And then in between, you get a little bit of everything. A little bit of everything. So I was always thinking, okay, so if I get the first 2, I got those. And then, the first 2, the other 2, not going to get, right? So my numbers are bad. What are we left with? 2, 4. So you have 6 in between. So if I could pick off 2 or 3 more in between, that's pretty good odds.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, that's not bad odds. And then you keep doing it. So that's the key too. So you just don't stop. You continue to do that. So you can keep getting in touch with more people. So the odds are you're going to get more connections. And I think what Kevin is saying, if you could go and target the people who you want to know.
Jack, I think you're frozen on my side.
Oh, and you want them to know you, and you just say, I'm sorry. Oh, I think my connection here got a little wonky. Can you hear me okay?
You froze for a moment.
Okay. Yeah. And I was saying such brilliant stuff. Darn it. All right, how's that?
A digital episode.
Yeah. Now I look at the phone to see, like, hey, what went wrong? See, you know what?
It's always the worst facial expression you can be making,
right?
Too, right? When it
right. I'm like,
hold that for a couple of minutes. I think somebody on the other side goes, "Oh, that's a good one."
Right. It's the worst. It's the worst face. But the smartest thing you say is when it cuts off.
Oh, absolutely.
When you say brilliant. So I don't know if I cut off, but yeah. So it's just it's a large numbers game. And how would you want? Would you say, hey, you get like 10 companies? Did you have like? Do you have it down to like a science where, okay, pick 10 companies, and then within 10 companies, I'm making up a number, find 2, 3, 4 people to try to connect with? Do you do something like that? Or how would you advise people?
You absolutely do. And depending on, the market space, right, might depend on how many of those companies you're going to target.
Mm-hmm.
So, if it's a real refined, if it's,
right.
AI in Dallas, Texas, that's going to be maybe 5 companies, right? So those are your targets. So you might want to expand even further with those within. Interesting enough, recruiters within those companies, often they're on LinkedIn and they're like, wow, Jack knows 15 of our employees.
Mm-hmm.
So Jack's applying, we better talk to him, right? Now, it may have been just a basic connection at that point, but they see that. They see that you're connected in that way. But, looking at that, I always also look at, right now, a lot of people are jumping industries, right? They're going from travel to consumer products. Look for people within those companies who did just that,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed
Interesting.
yeah, if you're targeting a consumer goods company and you don't want to really target the people who've always been consumer goods all the way from the very beginning, and that's why they're where they are, you want to find the ones that also were in the travel industry, or maybe they were in the hospitality industry most of their career, and they made this transition into consumer goods. That's the person that's going to understand you and be able to say, hey, look, this is how I did that. And it's a perfect opening to building that relationship. Hey, I'm really interested in your industry, and I noticed that you made a transition from an industry that I come from over here. How did you do that? Would you help me understand that? Would you give me some advice on how I might be able to do that?
That's
and
a brilliant idea.
That can be a better connection, right? A stronger link than somebody who said, no, you don't have any consumer good stuff, so I really can't help you, right? So find those that are like you that have made the transition. That can be huge. The other component of it, and people forget this, when you're building a relationship with somebody inside a company, and you get to a point where they're getting to know you, right? And they like you and they think, hey, you're skilled at this. When that opportunity opens up and you're going to ask them, would you push my resume forward, right, to the right people? Also ask them, do you have an employee referral program?
Mm-hmm.
Because often people do within companies and they don't even realize it. On average, most companies, it's about $1,500. I was with an organization where it was $10,000, $5,000 when they landed in the company, and $5,000 when they stayed 1 year. So you know what I did? My first year with this program, yeah. I spent my weekends actually sourcing people on LinkedIn, setting them up for a preliminary interview at Starbucks, right? Prepping them and saying, hey, there's a position I think you're perfect for. Can I help you get into this organization?
Yeah.
I locked up 10 of these within the first year.
Did they charge you and say, all right, Kevin, wait a minute, what's going on?
I blew up the program.
They say, wait a
other people are there like, you ruined it,
Yeah, like you're taking advantage of it.
But
that was so smart. That was so smart.
But that is going on, and people don't realize it. And let's say it is $1,000 or $1,500. If that individual wants to get a car for their daughter and doesn't quite have the budget right now, or they want to take that fishing trip or whatever it is, that's free money, right? If I already like you, why wouldn't I be a little extra? Because you got to take time out of your work day to really help somebody get into an organization. And so it's going to take time. It's going to take effort. But if I'm all of a sudden I'm going to be compensated if you get in, I'm going to make sure that happens as an employee. And that, if you're brought in by a respected employee within an organization that understands your value, HR responds to that. That's, an incredible opportunity, and people don't realize it. And, they start these relationships and they just don't go as far as they should because they can't put that kind of incentive on the table, but the company already does. So remember that and make sure, when you're building that relationship and you're getting to that point, that you ask that question, and they don't have to tell you, but they'll go find out. And usually they'll give you a call right back and say, hey, would you like to meet for coffee?
Look,
I'll buy.
It's that's such great advice because everyone wins.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm the employee and I know you and I think you're good for it. Hey, that's great. I'm going to help you get in the door, which I would probably do for free anyway, because I like you and I think you're good for it, but I'll get a little, something for it. You get the job and the company gets someone who's like, okay, hey, Jack knows Kevin really well, worked with him in the past, let's say, so we can feel comfortable hiring him because he's kind of come pre-approved. So the company's happy, the hiring manager's happy, the HR person's happy, I'm happy, you're happy. So it's one of those things where it's like, why not? It just makes it so So, it flows so nicely.
Yeah. It's like starting a fire. If you're using accelerant,
Yeah.
right? You can get that fire going quicker.
Do you know, are there lists out there? Or I guess we could Google it to show like what companies do that, or
working on creating one right now that I hope to bring to LinkedIn as a resource, as an article, people who are doing this, and I've got a list building. There are a couple of resources out there for an individual who wants to look for that. I mean, Indeed, right, is one of those. You can go in there and you can look at employee reviews. They also will list if there is a referral program, and sometimes the employee will say what that referral is. So there's ways of doing that. But I've always found that, at that point, if you're interested in that company and you're building connections to the company, just ask the connection, right? Because these things vary. They change all the time. And that's always been the tough thing about having a list or going by what's, let's say, on Indeed, because that might have been last quarter's deal, right? It doesn't exist anymore. So sometimes it's just better to ask as you're processing through.
Yeah,
but
that's good. That's
almost
great.
all companies have some kind of employee incentive. Sometimes it's a week's worth of vacation, other times it's cash. Sometimes it's, we'll pay for your fitness program, so there's all sorts of different ways that it's being done, but there's almost every company has some kind of incentive. And some of them, like the opportunity I ran into, were ridiculous. But
that was so awesome.
At the same time, they looked at it and they said, we saved so much money because we would have hired somebody like Jack and had to pay him 30 grand. Right. Instead of
for sure.
And so that's what they thought is, we've got a perfect employee. We made another employee happy and we didn't have to pay a recruiter. That's terrible to say.
No, it's true. I can't tell you how many times I've lost out for that over the years, because you may have, the 2 finalists or 3 finalists even, and then they say, well, sorry, we have somebody in mind. And then you find out, it was like an employee referral, because for recruiting, it could be 20, 25%, 30% of the base annual salary. So it gets pricey. And if they could get someone, even for the 10,000 you're talking about, you're saving a whole lot of money.
Oh yeah.
So, and plus you get that employee referral. So you feel a little bit, company and everybody involved feels a little bit more comfortable with that kind of scenario.
Absolutely.
So it's definitely,
and that gets around too. One employee does that and gets that nice bonus. They're telling 10 other employees.
Wait, now, did you tell people you were doing that, or you kept it your secret? When you were doing that side hustle, were you telling people?
I didn't tell anybody at the time.
You just like
until I blew the program up, and now I think it's $3 grand is what it is total.
Yeah,
1,500 and then 1,500. So,
hey, this is great. An hour just flew by. Did you have a couple more minutes? Because I just have another question. Hey, thanks. So, where do you see like the market from? Because I'd imagine you speak to all types of people in your line of work. What's your take on what you're hearing and what they're kind of thinking is going to happen, next 3-6 months? And I'm not saying you have to have a crystal ball. It's just kind of what vibe you're picking up.
Mostly positive, if I can put it that way.
That's great.
There's so many changes going on even today, right? But I think because of what's going on today was the first largest drop they've had in COVID cases, right?
I didn't know that.
Companies are watching that. It dropped 30%.
Wow.
And also death rates dropped as well. And places like, California, which was just a hot spot, is now a warm spot, so good news in that sense. Companies see those kind of things. Companies see people getting back to business, traveling now, staying in hotels, right? Going to events. They see all those things coming, and they know, because they've tightened the ship up over the last year, they've got to now start bringing people in. So we're seeing a lot of positive momentum, and we saw a lot of landing in this last month to opportunities that were still kind of closed, just a few months ago.
That's fantastic.
So I see it as a positive move forward. And where does it go? I don't know. But, we're hearing good things. We're getting clients with a lot of interview process, and a lot of them are landing. So we're excited.
Is it any particular sectors, or it's across?
Well, in our particular market, it's certainly not the airline industry yet. Right? We've got Southwest here and American Airlines, and we've gone through a process of helping many of them find a new industry. So ultimately, I think that will come back and that will change. But if you think about the industries that have had the heaviest impact, travel, hospitality, restaurant, those are going to be the slower ones to recover, right? They've got to, again, get everybody else back to work before they really start to pick up again. And things like travel industry, as far as business travel, which was always where the money was made, right? It wasn't made on the vacationers, it's made on the business travel. I don't know how much of that's going to come back. So, a lot of people that are in that industry are looking to do just what we talked about earlier, and that's transition into another industry where they know their skills are valuable. And, going back to that networking thing, find people who've done it before so they can help you move into it. Yeah. And, you just have to think more cleverly, I think, in this process. But everybody, I think, has a good idea of what industries are affected and which ones are going to be slower to come back. So I wouldn't focus in those if you're already in them. You might want to look at, how do I transition into something that's been more stable?
Have you found over your career a lot of success in people transitioning from one industry to the other?
Absolutely. And that's my background. I actually have done 5 pivots in my career, all successful in the process. Some were stimulated by massive let goes in organizations. Other ones I did by choice, right? And I always think you shouldn't take advice from somebody who hasn't done it, right? Who just says you can do it.
Yeah.
Take advice from somebody who's done it. And, that's one of those things. And that's how I get passionate about it and how I think about it. I think differently than most because I've been able to do it. And so, a lot of the techniques that work in the real world, work in the digital world, work in the future world, right? Because we're all humans. We all respond basically the same way. And you just have to change your approach.
Yeah. See, this is one of the many reasons why I love talking to people like yourself, because oftentimes, and we're all like this, we know our world. And let's say from the recruiting world, it's very specific. Like we were talking earlier on in the conversation about branding yourself. When company wants to use the service of a recruiter and going to pay for it, they don't have any time for nonsense. They want to find exactly what they want. Exactly. So when it comes time to transition, if I'm going, hey, Kevin was in the airlines industry, but here's why he could be good for Wall Street. They're like, Jack, what are you talking? What are you doing?
Your task is find the purple squirrel. The pink one's not going to do.
Yeah. So we all lack having, we all have like a blind spot because you just know what you're doing. So it's good to hear from what you're saying. That's really encouraging that you are seeing people in the airline industry, other industries in Texas who are able to pivot, reinvent themselves, and find, and I love that hack to kind of, find someone who did the same thing you did. So you kind of build that rapport, that bond right away. That's brilliant. That's so cool.
And the other thing too, and you know this, when you get a rejection, that no out of the group to get you the yes, don't forget about the people who said no to you. Respond back to them. Thank them for their time. Offer help, finding what they need. Build a relationship even with the person who said no, because no just means no, not today.
Exactly.
And you probably run into that all the time.
Of course, yeah.
It isn't the purple squirrel, but they're another kind of squirrel that you'd like to have a little later on. If they blow you off or they say something rude or like, Jack, whatever,
Right. That's
right. You're not ever going to deal with them again. But if they send you a thank you, I really appreciate it. And hey, if anything ever comes up where you need this, and this, I'm your guy. And otherwise, I know people in these areas and I know you're looking for those people. Let me know and I'll help you. Right now, you remember them. And so never forget the no's, because you can convert them one day into the yes.
You know what? That's so important. That's so important. I'm so glad you brought it up, because I could tell you real life experience happens all the time. You could have somebody who blows you, who seems like they're blowing you off, but then maybe a week, month, a year later would come back and say, hey, let's talk. Because as you pointed out, it wasn't a no, it was like a no. I can't quote you exactly what it was, like a no, not right now. And now they're ready. And if I would have just wrote them off, we never would have had that next conversation and so on. So yeah. And I think sometimes what happens if you go to your point, if you say, someone says no to you, you say, thank you, that's okay, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, and I always see this, you see on Shark Tank and something, when they say they don't give you the deal, and they still say, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing. You're building that rapport because, okay, maybe not this time, but there could be another time.
Yeah.
And I think the recipient of that, tell me if this makes sense, Kevin, probably gives you a little bit more respect. You know what I mean? Because it catches their attention like, huh, I said no, but wow, they were, you know, they were the bigger person in the sense of like, okay, you said no, but that's cool. That's fine. I still want to engage.
Yeah. And tomorrow an opportunity might come to you
Exactly.
where you look back and go, hey, Kevin was perfect for that.
Yeah.
Now I can call him and he wasn't rude to me.
Exactly. Exactly.
But
Hey,
I'm
you know
not
what?
calling Bob because Bob let me have it.
You know what? If someone was rude, I'll still get paid. All right. I'll let it go. I'll be cool. You know, that's all right. Water under the bridge. It's fine.
You can polish them, right?
Yeah, it's all right. I'll take it.
Just don't do it to the client.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take it. So was there anything I didn't ask you or anything else that you'd like to share with everybody?
Oh boy, we could probably do 10 more of these. But, you know, I think we did a lot today. We covered a lot today.
Well, thanks. There's a lot. You know, a lot of people who do these other LinkedIn Lives will field a lot of questions. We did get some questions, and then if you don't mind, maybe what we could do is when we upload it again we'll do it Friday or so usually. I could share the questions people had, and maybe, you know, we can go back and answer some
That'd
of
be
it.
fantastic.
Because I find out for me, it gets a little distracting if, you know what I mean? I'm stopping the
I
conversation.
don't know how people do both of those things. I just don't know how. And there's some people are incredible at it.
I prefer having the conversation like you and I have it. You know what I mean? Like you're engaged, you're in the moment, you're focused on it. You know, you don't get distracted. I find out that's always the best way in my own experience, where you can really draw from somebody by giving them the platform, letting them talk, letting them give advice. And I think for the listener and people who are watching it, it's more meaningful because it's not interrupted. You get that flow. You know, you get that steady flow. So I really appreciate it. I was taking notes to go through it, man. We went over a lot of stuff. I don't even want to recap it because look, it's a whole page of stuff. So I'm not going to even recap it, but you gave some really, really insightful advice and guidance and suggestions and ideas. So this is the kind of thing that I encourage people, you know, who, even if you watch it now, watch it again. Cause you know, this way you can fast forward to the points where you're like, oh yeah, he talked about this. I want to hear it again. And that's why I think these things are so valuable and so important and so helpful, because, you know, this is real actionable advice. You know, a lot of times people give advice, and I'm not saying this to make you feel good. I'm just being really honest. A lot of times people give advice, and I don't mean in this platform, just in general. And it's like, what am I going to do with it? It's not, you know, it's just, you know, you're just saying stuff. It's not, but what you're giving is real tangible advice. You know, it's like an action plan. Here's things you could do. This is what you do, and it works. And you've been doing this a long time. It worked both in your personal life when you transition and you switch jobs, and you know you have to do, you know, change your work life, but it also works as a career expert and a branding expert. So these are good things that you could walk away with and learn from. And I think the most valuable thing I walked away from, Kevin, is this: being a little sensitive to the fact that a lot of people are scared to get the no, so they don't do anything. And to take that chance, find the people that you want to connect with, be brave enough to try, because as you pointed out, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, it's a law of large numbers. If you keep trying and trying, you get enough people to say yes, that'll make it work. And I think that's like that kind of mantra. It's almost like a mantra they could use when they're going through it. You know, okay, it's a no, but I'm closer. It's a no, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. And it'll happen. So I think that's really, really good, sound, practical advice that people who are going through it, it's one of those nuggets that's in your head that now if you're getting no's, you're not going to freak out too much or worry about it, because you go, eventually I'm going to get that yes. And we both know sometimes all you need is that one yes, right? Absolutely. That's it, that one, and you're good. So, and
you'll forget about all the no's.
Right. Isn't it true? Right. You forget, you're like, it's water under the bridge. You forgot about it. So thank you. So this was really great, Kevin. I really appreciate it. How can people reach you? What's the best way for them to find you?
On LinkedIn.
Okay.
My URL is president on the end. So fairly simple, right? LinkedIn.com/in/president.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I come up for a lot of search results for president of LinkedIn. Doesn't hurt.
That's pretty
back
cool,
to
right?
Branding, back to, you know, driving the traffic, right?
Yeah.
That's the easiest place to find me, or just type in Kevin D. Turner. I use the D so that when I get bot emails, it says Kevin D, and I know it's a bot. Right?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So,
excellent.
That's my built-in filter, but Love
Excellent.
to connect, love to follow, love to be followed, and contribute. And so, I welcome anybody out there who wants to collaborate and kind of build this knowledge and share it with everyone.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. You're terrific. I really appreciate your time, Kevin.
Mac, I truly
All right.
appreciate it.
Oh,
It's been fun.
my pleasure. Take care.
All right.
All
Take
right.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hope you enjoyed this episode of the WeCruiter podcast. If you want to check out other great content from WeCruiter, make sure to visit us at wecruiter.io. That's WECRUITR.io. We offer tons of great resources for job seekers and professionals, so make sure to check us out today.